She stood at the end of the line like everyone else, quiet, polite, holding a coffee cup with her initials. But no one looked at her. Not really. They saw her shoes, her skin, not the name on the check. 10 minutes later, they would all remember her name, even if they never spoke it again. The door hissed shut behind her, and the dry click of her sneakers on the tile echoed across the branch. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A fan rattled softly in a corner. Somewhere near the front, a printer spat out forms with a shrill whine. Janelle Carter moved like someone with nowhere to rush, her phone resting in her hand, the last dregs of her latte warming her fingers. She joined the line quietly, standing behind a man in a rumpled blazer who smelled faintly of menthols and impatience. The room was small, beige, and over-air conditioned. Plastic chairs lined the wall, none occupied. 2 tellers at the front, a glassed-in office to the side. Her eyes flicked across the names on badges, then back to her phone. A message blinked unread. She didn't open it. Behind her, a voice said low, almost too quiet to register. Probably here to cash someone else's check. She didn't turn, didn't react, just tilted her cup to sip, keeping her face calm. The paper sleeve around it read, J. Carter, scrawled in thick black marker. Her thumb brushed over the ink. The line inched forward. 5 minutes passed, then another. The air carried the stale smell of carpet cleaner and burnt coffee. The man in the blazer stepped up to the counter, grumbling something about ATM fees. One teller nodded politely. The other was typing without looking up. I believe I am, Janelle said, voice even. Not sharp, just firm enough. The teller blinked. His eyes finally found her. Oh, sorry, didn't see you. She stepped forward, unfolding a crisp business check from her notebook. It was drawn from an account titled Carter Tech Holdings. Clean font. Upper 6 figures. I'd like to make a deposit, she said, sliding it across the glass. He picked it up, squinting at the name. You're with them. She paused. I am them. A beat. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Gonna need to get the manager, he said, already turning before she could answer. She didn't sigh. She didn't fidget. Just took a step back and opened her worn leather notebook. Inside, sketches, formulas, a photo of her mother in hospital scrubs, and a sticky note, yellowed at the edges, that read in blue ink, Never let the room define your worth. She let the book fall closed as a man in a pinstripe suit approached. He moved with the confidence of someone who never waited in lines. His gaze dropped to her coffee cup. J. Carter. That's funny. She looked at him. That's me. He chuckled, the way people do when they think you're kidding and don't expect to be corrected. He didn't ask questions, just stared at the check in his hand like it had offended him personally. This looks unusual, he said. You said you're the CEO. Yes. He didn't glance at the account again, just at her, her face, her shoes, her posture. We'll need additional verification. Might be best if you step aside while we sort this. She nodded once, not in agreement, just acknowledgement. Her hand brushed her pocket, felt the smooth metal of her office fob, then let go. She stepped quietly to the side. No one spoke to her. No one looked directly at her. At the ATM near the corner, an elderly woman struggled to make sense of the touchscreen. Her hand trembled as she tapped. The machine beeped angrily. Janelle stepped forward, crouched low so they were eye level. Let me help you, she said gently. I've got you. The woman didn't say thank you, just leaned in, breathing shallow through her mouth as Janelle guided her fingers through the steps. Withdraw. Confirm. Receipt. When she turned back toward the counter, nothing had changed. The manager was still talking to the teller in hushed tones. Her check sat untouched on the glass. A desk to the right. Younger man. Shirt too big. Collar slightly wilted. Assistant manager, the badge said. Malik Johnson. He was watching her, not staring. Watching. Eyes moving from her notebook to the check, back to her face. Something quiet in his expression. Not pity, not suspicion. Thought. Janelle leaned back against the marble wall, cool against her spine. The buzz of the lights overhead grew louder. People shifted in line. One woman smacked gum. Someone coughed. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. Waited. 10 minutes passed. The manager returned, arms crossed over his chest. Yeah, we can't process this today, he said. Policy. She nodded. Once. Slowly. Got it. She left the check on the counter, turned, walked. The doors opened with a soft, pneumatic hiss. Behind her, the room fell into a thick, prickling silence. No one laughed. No one called after her. Her latte cup still sat on the counter, the ink of her name catching the fluorescent light. The call came as the elevator doors were just beginning to close. She didn't recognize the number, but something in her gut told her to answer. Hi. This is Malik, from the bank. His voice was tight, like he hadn't planned what to say next. I just wanted to confirm. Are you really Janelle Carter? There was a pause. I was, she said quietly, until about 10 minutes ago. Then she hung up. The elevator hummed around her. Cool chrome walls, polished buttons, the faint scent of lemon cleaner and steel. She looked at herself in the mirrored surface. Tall, still, a navy dress slightly wrinkled at the waist. Her reflection stared back without expression. You knew this could happen, she whispered. The elevator didn't answer. When the doors opened, the hum of office life spilled in. Keyboards tapping, phones ringing, someone laughing too loud at something that wasn't funny. She stepped into the quiet luxury of Carter Tech's top floor. Concrete floors, glass walls, a team of people who had no idea what had just unfolded 2 blocks away. She passed the front conference room. Through the glass, she saw the board already gathering. Suits, blazers, stylish trims and thin smiles. The kind of room where power sat with its arms folded. She didn't go in. Instead, she slipped into her office, closed the door, and let the silence fill her lungs. An hour later, she was at that table anyway. Third chair from the end, her seat slightly offset from the rest. A tray of croissants sat untouched, bottled waters lined up like props. So, said Rick Hargrove, one of the early investors. He flipped through a deck of printed slides, not looking up. We're burning too many hours on side errands. Next time, maybe someone else handles the bank runs. No offense. No one laughed. Except him. Janelle didn't speak, just reached for her pen, drew a slow circle in the corner of her notebook, kept her eyes down. Her pulse thudded softly in her neck. Be the code anyway. The voice wasn't hers. It came from a memory. She was 9 again, sitting cross-legged in the South Fulton Public Library. The air had smelled like dust and plastic binders. Her fingers stained with graphite from tech manuals no one else ever checked out. Her mom. bone-tired, smelling of fryer grease and medicated hand soap, sat beside her, watching, not correcting, just there. "People will think you're a glitch," her mom said once, not unkindly. "Be the code anyway." Now she sat in a boardroom made of glass and chrome, and not one person in that room knew about that library, or the sticky note tucked in her drawer, or the way her hands had shaken when she walked out of that bank. Later that week, Malik showed up at the Carter Tech front desk. No call, no appointment. He looked different in daylight, less stiff, more human. He held his phone like a shield. "I just wanted to say, sorry. That was messed up and impressive, honestly. I didn't know who you were, but I saw that manager, Lowell. He..." She raised her hand gently, not to silence, just to steady the moment. "Thank you," she said. He offered to testify, said he could pull the security footage, said it was all on record. She didn't answer, just nodded once, then turned to go. She didn't want to see herself through his eyes. Not yet. That night didn't introduce herself, didn't take the mic. She just moved to the front row, sat tall, met the girl's eyes, nodded. Once. Later, no cameras, no applause. She wrote a check for $10,000 and left it folded inside the girl's binder. She didn't sign it with her name. Back at the bank, Mr. Lowell hadn't been quiet. An email arrived in Malik's inbox 2 days later. The subject line read, "Be careful who you praise." Attached, security footage from the branch. Grainy, silent. Titled, "Entitled Girl Tries to Scam Check." Girl, not woman, not client, not CEO. Malik didn't reply, but he forwarded the email and printed it. That night in her condo above Peachtree, Janelle sat on the floor, lights off, shoes kicked aside, her laptop open beside her, untouched. The city glowed out the window in warm yellows and cool blues. She opened the drawer beside her bed. The sticky note was still there. "Never let the room define your worth." She held it for a long time, long enough for her arm to go numb. What if they're right? What if they always will be? The whisper didn't come from outside. It was hers. Then another whisper answered, a little louder, a little steadier. "Then do it anyway." The next morning, she walked into the legal strategy meeting unannounced. No warning, no suit. Just a binder, a flash drive, and a plain manila envelope. She didn't say anything at first, just laid the items gently on the table. Inside, corporate ownership papers, a time-stamped recording of the incident, Malik's statement, a printed draft of the lawsuit, receipts, no drama, no emotion. The bank, "I know." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was exact. Something had begun to move, just slightly, like a weight sliding off a surface, not fast enough to hear, but just enough to feel. The pen resumed its motion. Notes were taken. Papers were clipped. No one raised their voice, but no one looked at her the same again. 3 days later, he came in person. No cameras, no press kit, no assistant in tow. Just a long gray coat, dark-rimmed glasses, and a silence that lingered even after he knocked. The regional director of the bank stood at the door of Janelle's office like someone entering a sanctuary. She was behind her desk, sleeves rolled up, whiteboard behind her still covered in diagrams from an early morning meeting. "I read everything," he said. His voice was low, measured, like he was still deciding which part of his script applied here. We've launched an internal investigation. She didn't stand, didn't offer her hand, just looked at him, steady. He didn't ask her to forgive anyone, but before he turned to go, he bowed his head slightly. A small thing, barely a second, but not small at all. Online, it was louder. Screens lit up. Tweets, posts, reels. Some furious, some mocking. She made it about race. She embarrassed the branch. She should have just shown ID. Reverse racism. She's probably lying. She overreacted. But no one could argue with the video, or the documents, or the check that had been left on the counter like trash. She didn't respond. Not once. Not in a quote, or a podcast, or a thread. Silence, she'd learned, could be sharper than reply. And then, the shift. Mr. Lowell was fired. No statement from the bank. Just a quiet update on the branch website, his name gone. But someone had screenshotted his social media post. I didn't realize. Those 3 words trended for a day and a half. Then came the offer. She was invited back, not to the branch, but to the top floor of the bank's downtown HQ. A pale wood conference room, crisp air, a panel of executives in fitted suits and strategic smiles. They offered her a national consulting role on equity and inclusion, generous pay, travel budget, full PR support. A seat at the table, they said. She listened politely, even smiled once near the end. Then she slid the folder back across the table without opening it. "Thank you," she said. "I have a different idea." The silence this time was heavier. 2 weeks later, her idea was funded, not with applause, but action. The Carter Fund launched quietly, a mentorship pipeline and capital grant program for underrepresented founders. She didn't pose for photos, no ribbon cutting, no speech. "I don't want a title," she told them. "I want a pipeline." And so it began. Other CEOs started reviewing their service teams. Banks across the region sent out quiet memos. "Don't miss your Janelle." At the same branch, brighter now, newer paint, better lighting, a young black teller interrupted a man trying to cut a head of an elderly woman. "No, sir," she said, voice calm. She was first. The old woman smiled. The teller smiled back. "You good, ma'am." One morning, Janelle walked past that same branch on her way to a meeting. Her coffee in hand, earbuds in. She slowed, stopped, placed one palm on the glass, just for a second. Inside, Malik looked up from his desk. He saw her, and he nodded. She didn't wave, didn't go in, just kept walking. The city was waking around her. The low growl of buses, the sharp ping of crosswalk signals, steam rising from a manhole grate. She lifted the phone to her ear. It rang once, then again. A pause. Then she said softly, "Next time, they'll see me coming."